A Chinese billionaire is claiming that over 1 million people have been infected, over 50,000 people dead already. Burn pits, incinerators, crematoriums going on full blast, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the latest insight on what's happening out there in China. Of course, the situation is probably even worse than that. We've got some pretty interesting graphics that just shows you how out of control this epidemic is. And of course, we've been talking about the latest footage, people dropping dead, bodies everywhere. They're basically liquidating buildings block by block and throwing people into these death camps and then off to the crematorium. There's a total blackout of information for the most part, so there is no way to tell how bad it is, how bad the kill rate is. But how many people out there remember the Fema coffins? Remember the Walmarts getting ready for the extermination? They may be coming right back to the headlines as we speak, ladies and gentlemen. As we speak, the Pentagon is preparing military bases as quarantine zones. This has come out in the mainstream media. Just about every major city that you can imagine is gearing up for the genocide. And that's exactly what this is. Instead of gassing people, they're using a virus. And there's no telling how many Fema coffins are ready to be used right now. But over the years, we've seen the mass grave sites. We've seen them preparing for exactly this kind of scenario. We just didn't think about the X factor, the virus in this situation. And that's what these mass graves are for. And it could very well be that all of these things were put into place for what's coming next. Time will tell. But how many people remember the videos of these Fema coffins, of these mass grave sites? You know, they're fluoridating you, chemtrailing you, pesticiding you, spraying you like bugs, and the like, ladies and gentlemen, surrounding you with death towers. You know these people are up to no good. And here comes dessert, the Wuhan supervirus, to say the least. But there we go, more footage. And there's certainly, tons of old footage that we could bring up of the FEMA camps and the like. But essentially, your city has become a kill zone. And this virus is coming. And pretty much every doctor and the like is raising the alarms right now, ladies and gentlemen. Very bleak situation ahead of us, to say the least. Here's an interesting graphic. I think we'll try and let this cycle to the beginning. But throughout this graphic, as the cases continue to rise, we can see new outbreaks and just how out of control this situation is. I think this is probably one of the most moving graphics that we've seen so far, to say the least. And it's like a race. Who can have the most out there? And we'll try and find a better version of this where we can see the names that are, circulating here. But Singapore right now is in the lead, followed closely by Japan and the like. And of course, people got to Japan and got to Singapore in Malaysia through the airplane. And that means if these people are experiencing an outbreak, undoubtedly, many more countries are as well. And we only have a fraction of the numbers, because you have to remember that a confirmed case means that they went through some sort of process. And not everybody is going to go through that process. Not everybody's going to have severe symptoms. Only, maybe 20% of all people. So this is the beginning of the tracking, January 24th, and as we can see, more and more countries are added to the list, more and more cases, and the like. And it's clear by this animation that the outbreak is basically underway, and it's out of control. And it's only a matter of time before this, these bioreactors, these countries, these cities start producing, more patient zeros out there. And essentially this virus is going to turn, the airline industry into a cruise missile industry delivering, the goods, the viruses out there. We fully expect that these viruses will come in, this epidemic will come in waves. You'll see a massive wave front that crosses your area and lasts approximately 2 weeks, where it's really going to be like Resident Evil out there in terms of catching the virus. And so, when that 2-week period is actually going to be is one question. But often enough in terms of epidemics, you get multiple bursts. And, you'll have one wave front, then you'll have a secondary wave front, and that may be worse than the first one. But there'll certainly be aftershocks, to say the least. And that's what we're telling people to prepare for. Start getting supplies little by little, because it looks like this thing is going to hit like the DEV virus, like this demonic virus that has body snatched millions of people. We've talked about this in our Dark Matrix series. You're going to have to go way back in the archives in the video section for more on that. But, the world of virology is quite an interesting place. We may have to spend some time there talking about the basics of infection and epidemics and the like, but this has all of the characteristics of something that is out of control, to say the least. We're expecting, more official numbers, but they are pretty much meaningless at this stage. They're just making them up to try to make people feel good as this thing sets up to blow up like, an atom bomb in every major city around the world. And we fully expect some synchronicity in this New World Order attack, this genocide. Again, the videos are pretty clear. Body bags everywhere, people dropping dead. This is a weaponized virus, ladies and gentlemen. This is a military weapon that's traveling around the world infecting people, and it's coming to your town. And so people need to act accordingly. And, if people had been acting accordingly since 9/11, we probably wouldn't, be in this situation right now. Everybody knows 9/11 was an inside job. Everybody knows that these people are trying to get you. And what you're seeing on television is, just part of the control structure, part of the controls that this matrix uses to, keep you in line, keep you entertained and distracted. But beware of the TV. These people are not on your side, and they're all about betraying you one way or another. Had it been different, they would have taken down these death towers, arrested Hillary. They never would have arrested, Julian Assange or the like. What we've got here, obviously, is more of the same, and you can't really expect, anything less. And it's like, 9/11 all over again. The planes are 20 miles out, 10 miles out. Do the orders still stand? Of course the orders still stand. The FEMA camps are there. The FEMA coffins are there. The virus is on its way. And so, they're going to try to become the hero of the story, of course. But, I think people should be aware that it's more problem reaction solution. And whatever's on the other end of this tunnel, it's going to be nasty business. ladies and gentlemen, martial law, draconian kind of things, and the like. So people should prepare, and we say get 45 days worth of supplies if you can, but that's probably not going to be enough. We recommend people get ammo, start networking out there, start trying to get some team members to defend your city and the like the best that you can. It's going to be like Red Dawn, except the commies aren't who you think they are, ladies and gentlemen. The Nazis aren't who you think they are out there. But the message here should be clear. They've got all these FEMA coffins, these FEMA camps, these mass graves. That's what they've been doing with your tax money, besides bombing innocent people out there sometimes. I mean, the Iraq war was a lot of innocent people. They had nothing to do with 9/11, WMDs and the like, and then it just kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Of course they hate us now, but I guess that's all besides the point. But it is the point. I mean, this is nothing new. This is just more of the same, and it's coming to a neighborhood near you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to these people, these demons on TV, this beast system that is non-stop product placement for the dark side, non-stop product placement for Luciferian ideologies, desperate housewives and modern families and the like. And 1 in 4 kids in California are transitioning right now, Sodom and Gomorrah style. And guess where this virus is going to hit? First, pretty much California. They're going to get the worst of it. We should be basically blowing all the tunnels through the Rockies and the like right now, just like the Chinese did at the beginning of the outbreak. But we'll learn to survive. We won't have much choice, but undoubtedly we'll see these exact same scenes kind of repeat themselves as people become desperate, trying to fight the war against the virus. And right now they've passed laws out there in Wuhan that says if you have the virus or have been in contact with somebody that has the virus, they're going to basically throw you in one of these death camps. So that's essentially the scenario right now, ladies and gentlemen. You can just be suspected of being infected, and that's it. We're also getting reports of all sorts of fires near and around Wuhan, open pits, tens of thousands dead, incinerators working nonstop, body bags everywhere. I mean, it's just a real nightmare scenario. And when you see what they're doing just to try to contain this resident evil nightmare, do you think we're going to even come close to that as this thing hits? And again, you have to remember, this is a weapon. This is all about the setup, and it's all about circumventing modern containment. And so the reports that we're getting right now is that even the people in the hospitals with the masks and everything, they're getting infected. We saw numerous doctors, specialists in infectious diseases die from this virus and the like. This is meant to aerosolize and spread like weaponized anthrax, basically. Polarized particles that just cling to everything. A nightmare. So at least we have some kind of heads up, and our recommendation again is to start stocking up because everybody seems to think that this thing is gonna come through, and it'll come in waves, and you're gonna have to ride these waves out the best you can. And the last thing you want to do is get stuck at the grocery store like it's Black Friday trying to get toilet paper when everybody's coughing on you and the like. You want to reduce your risk and any type of exposure. I mean, this thing even gets through your eyes, it infects any and every type of mucous membrane out there. And even fecal clouds are now becoming a weapon of mass destruction, if you can believe that. We'll let you think about that. What does that mean, fecal clouds? But essentially, we're dealing with a weapon that's meant to basically boot up in a city without anybody knowing it, and then just blow up in synchronicity and just send everybody to the hospital, destroy infrastructure, take out the hospitals and everything, workers, factories, shut everything down. And it probably could be worse. I mean, it could probably be like liquid Ebola, but this stuff is bad enough. People are dropping dead, and it's a killer. And it's designed for it's designed so that people can just kind of like pretend like it was some kind of accident. And that's exactly how they're framing the story right now. But microbiologists from around the world are saying this thing came out of a lab. It's got all the fingerprints. It's been genetically modified. It's like a Frankenstein virus, a doomsday virus that just, leapt into the population, if you will. And look, if you wanted to write a textbook on how to properly boot up a pandemic, I mean, this is it. You let a megacity turn into a giant incubator that shoots out cruise missiles, planes full of viruses to every other city in the world, pretty much. And it's all going to kind of blow up at the same time. This is definitely like a doomsday virus, some kind of dead man switch. And essentially what we're looking at right now, what we're realizing right now, is some kind of Fukushima happened back in mid-November, and we're just catching up to it now. And we're many weeks behind this pandemic, not just 3 weeks behind the lockdown in Wuhan, where people were just flying in and the like, but we're many more weeks behind that, because they could have contained this in Wuhan. They had the screening available. Doctors were blowing the whistle, and instead they got arrested and probably killed. And so everything that we're seeing right now is part of the plan. I mean, they're letting all of this virus in, all of these planes in. They're letting people just kind of run around for the most part and do whatever, except for the ones that actually turn themselves into the hospitals right now. But they've done everything they could to facilitate this new 9/11, and that's exactly what this is. This is a new 9/11. This is another inside job where they've just let the planes fly on in, and this time it's going to be much more serious. It's not just a building. We're talking about potentially millions of people being killed here. Now, right now, Zero Hedge is reporting about a Chinese billionaire that has, inside connections, saying 1.5 million people have been infected, 50,000 people have been killed. And, that's probably more, on par with what we're seeing in the videos than what they've been releasing out there. The last broadcast we did, we really focused on these new hospitals that were all over the news that they built in 5 days and 7 days, and and the like, and people were like, wow. And then we find out that these hospitals are like right next door to the crematorium, and these hospitals have bars on them, and now they're just basically liquidating apartment buildings and throwing them into these hospitals to get infected. It's a genocide. What's happening right now, it's a genocide. We're getting reports of burn pits, fires everywhere. They're burning bodies like you can't even believe, burning the evidence. They've passed new laws, basically saying that, There'll be no more funerals, and you don't even have to pay for the cremation. It'll be done for you. And they've passed new laws saying that if you're suspected to have been in contact with somebody that's infected, they can take you away. And so all they got to say really is that there was, one person that was suspected of having an infection in your building, and they can haul everybody off. And that's exactly what they're going to do. I mean, if you were dealing with this, super virus, this doomsday virus, I mean, that's what you would have to do to make sure that this eventually stops. And of course, what we're learning about the incubation and the spread of this virus, makes it more difficult to stop this epidemic, because people are starting to shed the virus without symptoms, and they're shedding the virus, way after they've had symptoms, whether they go critical or not. I mean, they're basically like a bioreactor, exhaling virus particles. And what, sometimes, people don't understand is it just takes a particle, really, not necessarily like a whole virus to infect you. And again, the world of virology is, rather mind-blowing, to say the least. But you've got all sorts of ways, to basically to hack and infect, a cell or an organism, and it's what we're seeing here. But the bottom line is that we're dealing with something that's weaponized, designed to cause, mass casualties. This is a military weapon. It's like a nuclear weapon. It's like a chemical weapon. It's like, a cruise missile. It's like one of these, laser guided missiles, in a sense. It's military. It's not, some kind of firecracker or some kind of, flu or something like that. This is a military weapon, and it's on the loose. And it's designed to spread, in stealth mode, ramp up, blow up, and infect. And what we're going to see is that the infection patterns are going to be like ripples in the pond. And there's going to be an epicenter, and then there's going to be the ripples, and it's going to burn out from the epicenter out towards, like, fresh meat. And in the big cities, I mean, it's just going to be like, a buffet, if you will. But we can expect, that kind of pattern to basically to be reflected in just about every kind of metric. So we'll see, the epidemic spread from the big cities to the smaller cities, kind of like hub and spoke along the, highways, roads, and the like. And so, that kind of gives you a way to forecast when it should be more or less in your town. And I think we'll be talking more about, forecasts and the like as this story develops. But for the longest time, they've had over 100 suspected cases in America, and they're still there. We're never going to know what the real numbers are. Right now, they've got a difficult choice between shutting down the economy or acting surprised. And in any case, they're going to have to shut everything down like China. Otherwise, everybody's going to get infected. And the only strategy is to let this kind of burn out in quarantine, which is essentially what, the Chinese are trying to do. But how effective will we be at doing that? Can you imagine them locking down American cities? Everybody's got a gun. You got gangsters everywhere. It's gonna get ugly rather quick. They're not gonna have much choice but to send in the military, and it's gonna be like right out of a movie for the most part. That's pretty much, I think the most realistic forecast at this stage, to say the least. Businesses will shut down, the stock market will crash. It'll feel like the end of the world for most people. But you really have to remember, where this virus is going to hit the worst, and that's going to be in the big cities. It's going to be in places that are anti-Christian in nature. And how many of you out there, when you heard the news that the Chinese were going to try and rewrite the Bible, how many of you were shaking your head like, oh, they're going to get it? Well, they got their response. That's what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, that Sodom and Gomorrah is going to burn. I mean, it's too early to tell and to really make a declaration. You know what I mean? But right now, that's certainly what it looks like, and I think many people will, kind of catch on to, to that pattern, that it's really going to be like, Pedo Wood, New Babylon, and the like, that are going to get this the worst. But we have to do our due diligence here and make sure that this virus is contained within their area. And so we need to basically kind of shut down the highways and whatever into California, make sure that they can't really escape and bring their virus into the heartland. And that way at least it won't be a total loss. We'll have less Democrats out there. Rachel Madcow may not make it, but we can survive if we want to. We can contain this virus and isolate these big cities. And it's probably something that we should have done a long time ago anyways, ladies and gentlemen. But if we play this right, these FEMA camps are for them, not for you. But if you just sit around and be complacent and watch this thing kind of roll out on TV with a 10-day lag on what's actually going on, you're going to get probably caught up in their, eugenics program. So you got to be 2 steps ahead. These people. You've been awake since 9/11. You know what's going on out here. This is not your imagination. Nobody's making up, what's going on right now. They're literally out to get you. And the video guy is on vacation. You must be thinking about these FEMA camps. But don't forget about the Walmarts. Don't forget about the FEMA camps. Don't forget about the dual purpose of just about everything that's out there today. Because, it can be repurposed into something much, much more nefarious. And if it looks like it's bad news, it's probably bad news, like these holding pens. And you can't imagine like how many people they could cram into into a Walmart, and then they just roll up with their mobile incinerators, and and they go to work, ladies and gentlemen. And undoubtedly they'll pass laws and the like, saying that if you're infected, you've got to go into a quarantine zone. And there'll be like temperature checks, like DUI checkpoints, just like what they're doing in Asia right now. We'll see, we'll see them trying to do the same thing. Now, if you're just joining us, we spent a little time on this graphic showing the evolution of this outbreak in various countries, cases, who's number 1 in the Olympics here. And you can see, that this thing is out of control. And right now there's numerous countries melting down: Japan, Malaysia, South Korea. They've got uncontrolled spread. And so you're just going to see those numbers skyrocket. It's going to become like another China syndrome. And we've been seeing a lot of cases in the news, coming from Singapore, for example, that have super spread across Europe and the like. So, I mean, it's not even just Chinese planes anymore. It's like, now it's Southeast Asia. And before long, it'll be, the entire world. And we're probably only a couple weeks behind them at best. Maybe there's only a couple days before they really start reporting outbreaks. But we expect this to happen pretty much at any time. And it'll start small. I think people should really focus on Singapore right now as far as, how it's kind of rolling out. We've got 40 cases, we got 50 cases, secondary spreading. And that's really where China started, at the end of, we should say at the beginning of the lockdown. But, they announced 40 cases and they're like, oh yeah, we're just going to do this as a precaution. And then like overnight, everything was shut down, thousands of cases, body bags everywhere, So, they're already kind of past the threshold where this thing is just going to blow up. And like we said, there's numerous countries melting down right now. Most specialists, feel that we're probably only like days behind them. maybe a week or two if we're lucky. But at this stage, nobody really thinks that we're not going to get it. And right now, even the military is preparing, quarantine zones at military bases in New York, DC, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, just to name a few. And so they're already kind of gearing up for the FEMA camps. And so people just need a nice little reminder that these FEMA camps are out there. And you've heard about them, and you're like, you probably forgot about them since, we've been winning for so long here for the past few years. But look, you should remember those FEMA camps. Remember those FEMA coffins, because they're ready for you. They'd like you to, to check in and, get your measurements taken. But as far as we can tell, they can fit 5 or 10 people in one of those things. And it's straight into the furnace. It's made to burn. So there you go. What else can you say? I know we got a bunch of talking points, so maybe we should actually go through those for once instead of just kind of trying to manage the video section here. But again, if you want to write a textbook on how to boot up, an epidemic, we've watched that happen right now, and it starts with a city and then a country, and then then every major city has it in the world, thanks to air traffic, and then it just kind of hubs and spokes into every other town connected to the big cities. So people should be thinking about what they want to do to survive right now. Start preparing. Obviously, these graphics here kind of paint a stark picture. This virus has left containment. It's everywhere. And it's only really Southeast Asia that's reporting a fraction of what's going on. Most Western countries are just still paralyzed with fear, trying to figure out how they're going to BS their way into their deep underground military bases. Don't let them escape. They let these things in. They should be out there in Times Square, breathing it in like everybody else for the most part. But the more you know and the more time you have to prepare, the better it is. Again, you don't want to be out there in the supermarket like it's Black Friday trying to get toilet paper when everybody's coughing and and keeling over and the like. Get as many supplies as you can that you would use anyways until it kind of looks like it's going to go into panic mode. Then you might as well splurge and just max out the cards and survive as long as you can. No, just kidding. But there's no telling how long this would the full lockdown could last. I think it's hard for people to imagine that this will actually happen. But we should expect 30 to 45 day quarantines easy. Of course, the video guy is just on vacation. Of course, we're dealing with quite a bit of interference from the Matrix. The whole thing is just really weird because they don't want the the life-saving information to get out there. They just want the fluff out there to make people think like everything's okay. And if you talk to people out there, most people, they've heard of the virus, but they don't realize what's going on. And ignorance in a situation like this will get everybody killed. So, but in any case, the more people that are kind of on the same page, the better it'll be. Start practicing your self-isolation practices and the like. Don't shake hands, don't breathe other people's air, don't stick around if people are coughing everywhere. And try to avoid the first waves, the first rush to the grocery store, to the hospitals when they've announced that secondary spreading has begun in your area. And it's safe to assume that this virus is 2 or 3 steps ahead of what the television is saying. So if they say that it's, just beginning to outbreak in, Chicago or San Francisco, it's probably, way beyond that. So, in any case, we suspect that within the next 2 weeks, we're going to start seeing secondary spreading in America, and undoubtedly it's already begun to a certain extent. And, we could get into patterns and projections, but at this stage, it's just really too early to tell. The best kind of, I guess the best thing to say is if you're looking to see what it'll look like, just keep an eye on, Japan and Singapore, because they're melting down right now. So we regularly update our website, stfnreport.com, with meaningful news regarding this outbreak and other topics as well. But as we can see right now, it's pretty much a downward spiral over there, and it's coming over here. So there you go. I think that right now the best thing we can do is just raise awareness, get people on the same page, and start seeding some responsibility in terms of what this administration isn't doing to protect America with this looming crisis. And obviously they're preparing to put people in body bags, and I think that kind of speaks for itself. But otherwise, the sooner that they know that they're responsible for this, the sooner they'll try and really actually find a fix to this and just try and show up as the hero. But as long as they can keep this crisis going, the longer that you're focusing on this, you're not focusing on Epstein or any other kind of thing. So this is the perfect distraction, you could say. And I guess we'll just have to leave it there for this broadcast. Sundays are a real kind of slow news day. We're not going to get a whole lot of information. And regardless, out there right now, it's kind of like, full lockdown in China. People are being arrested, liquidated. It's a genocide. So it's become a black hole of information for the most part. But we're still getting new videos of people dropping dead on the streets. So, there you go. The EMF, the cell towers, cell phones, Wi-Fi make every virus worse. Just letting you know that. You can check out magnetically assisted transfection and the links between, static fields, electric fields, pulsed fields, and, white blood cells and the like. So, ditch your cell phones if you dare. If you dare, be healthy out there. We'll leave it there for this broadcast, and we'll come back with some updates tomorrow. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Much love out there to everybody in the audience. We're hacking the Matrix live on ScrewTube. Much love to the regulars out there, to the newbies and the like. And there you go. I mean, this is the footage. This is the situation. The numbers are staggering. Everybody's lying. Everybody's got something to gain by, keeping people in the dark right now. But I think everybody kind of deserves to know how bad this virus is, and we're gonna find out one way or another. Till the next time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance. Oh yeah, the video guy is still on vacation. We'll try that again. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.